The Republican Guard is in full control. Everything is taken care of. What you are hearing, I don't know whether you can distinguish whether this is our missiles and our artillery or theirs. We will defeat them. We will fight them till we clean our country from their dirts. They killed a number of their mercenaries, injured another number, and the rest flew like rats. They are a snake moving in the desert. We push them, they run away to the back, we pounding them, they disappear in the depth back.
If you've got health care already, then you can keep your plan if you are satisfied with it.
If you like the plan you have, you can keep it.
I intend to keep this promise. If you like your health care plan, you'll be able to keep your health care plan.
If you like your plan and your doctor, you can keep them.
You'll be able to keep your health care plan.
If you like your plan, you keep your plan.
If you like your doctor, you like your plan, you can keep your doctor, you can keep your plan.
You like your current insurance, you keep that insurance. Period.
Time after time, and said that she was referring to talking points created by the CIA. Now we see a document that comes from the White House, not from the CIA, attributing the protests to the video. And we have the former director of the CIA saying that that was not something that his analysts had attributed.
That document that we're talking about today was about the overall environment in the Muslim world.
Say that the attack at Benghazi was rooted in a protest over the video? That's what she said.
I know that you and I are both in a different time zone right now.
What difference at this point does it make?
It's not about Benghazi. Why turn it over in a Benghazi suit? It seems...
you would have to ask State Department about their process for responding to FOIA requests. Again, you can just read it and then decide for yourself. As many people have now said and written, like, this is a conspiracy in theory and virtue of a conspiracy.
The conservative group comes in and says, we want Benghazi documents. The administration says, this is not a Benghazi document, so we're not turning it over, right?
Again, I don't, like, this is a State Department FOIA request response.
What difference at this point does it make?
Now the Republican Guard is in full control of Saddam International Airport, and those mercenaries now outside the airport in Abu Ghraib district, and they are surrounded, and we are pounding them by missiles and heavy artillery. We are deciding it's under our control.
There is often talk that only military and police should have guns, that if there is an incident, a man in uniform will swoop in and save you. And there are plenty of good people in those positions. But we can't ignore the blatant abuses of power that do occur, such as an off-duty NYPD member who got drunk and shot a man 6 times. To anyone who'd point out that the man was off the clock at the time of the shooting, I'd be quick to point out that he shot a man 6 times. On the other side of the country, a man fleeing from police was shot in the back, fell down a staircase, and died. Reports are that the man had previously been menacing with a pair of scissors, but was unarmed when he was killed from behind. Moving now to Texas, a sheriff responding to a burglary killed the dog of the victim who called him. Apparently, pepper spray wasn't a good enough option to keep the dog at bay. And earlier this year, Albuquerque police killed a homeless man for the heinous crime of camping.
Do it. Get on the ground! Get on the ground now! Get on the ground! Get on the ground! Don't make noise! Put your hands out to your side and drop the knife! Hands out to your side! Beanbag! Beanbag! Drop the knife! Drop the knife! Drop the knife! Still got the knife in your... Negative.
Let's contrast that with responsible citizens handling firearms.
While they're reversing, the lady's holding onto her purse still, chasing him all the way to the middle.
That's when a perfect stranger intervenes. You can see him there in the PT Cruiser at the top of the screen.
And that Good Samaritan came out and drew his weapon and scared them. And then that's when he pulled him out the car.
Someone snapped this picture of the man holding the two suspects at bay. A few minutes later, police arrived.
She heard the suspect say this.
He said that crazy has a gun, and that's when I was finally down on the sidewalk and I shot it into the dirt, into the grass area, and to let him know, you know, I've got a gun and I know how to use it.
With all of this in mind, the Department of Justice is continuing their attack on the Second Amendment by limiting banking options for gun stores. This in addition to the DOJ running guns into the hands of Mexican drug cartels with Operation Fast and Furious. So to the Good Samaritans and constitutional police alike, be aware that if the DOJ continues these actions virtually unchecked, you may find your right to bear arms infringed in a way that you wouldn't expect. You can find more reports at INFOWARS.com.
One thing that I think is clear with young people and with adults as well is that we just have to be repetitive about this. It's not enough to simply have a catchy ad on a Monday and then only do it every Monday. We need to do this every day of the week and just really brainwash people into thinking about guns in a vastly different way.
Well, thank you for tuning in to the show tonight. There are many more special reports coming up right after the news, but please pick up a copy of this month's edition of the INFOWARS magazine. It recaps the battle for Bunkerville, everything that went down there, including Dirty Harry Reid and Cliven Bundy and all of his supporters. We've got some great graphics here from the graphics department, kind of breaking down the reality of the grazing cattle there versus the desert tortoise and the endangered desert tortoise. Basically, nature had it right to begin with. In the 1930s, when the cattle were just grazing freely, the turtles themselves were living in abundance. And then as the feds came in and took control of the land, not only did the cattle go down by about 90%, they reduced that, but the tortoises themselves went down by about 97%. So it's definitely not about protecting an endangered desert tortoise. It's more so about controlling this land and apparently reducing the beef production also there in an effort to control our food and how much food is coming in and out of our farmland. So thank you, BLM. That's all here in this edition of the INFOWARS magazine. Be sure to pick it up. You help support our operation. And thank you all so much for watching the show tonight. We'll see you here next week, 7 p.m. Central.
Does the term public servant sound like an anachronism to you? Something from a bygone era where people believed that the government worked for them? When they paid the salaries, they believed they were the masters? Well, the mindset among most people in government today appears to be that they are the masters, we are the slaves, and many of the slaves have that same attitude. Take this story out of Louisiana. A mother's concerned when her asthmatic son turns red, complains of chest pains, so she calls for an ambulance. Now, the EMS personnel don't show much concern for his medical condition. In fact, even though he's pointing to his chest, according to the mother, they say, well, he's pointing to his stomach, so he's not having any chest issues or asthma conditions. And then they start to ask why he's not in school. When they find out that he's homeschooled, they begin an inspection of the house. Taken back by this, she confronts these EMS personnel, and they say, well, we're agents of the state. So she calls the supervisor and complains, and he says, they're agents of the state. Now, that's in Louisiana. In North Carolina, a sheriff is talking about the immense powers that he has over your life as part of his election campaign. In an article from Lou Rockwell's blog that's on InfoWars, Sheriff Ed Brown, the delusional dictator of Onslow County, North Carolina, he writes on his election flyer, the vast majority of our duties and functions are performed with only our conscience watching and directing us. And that's a big part of the problem. We see over and over again that violent confrontations with the public, unjustifiable violence and brutality against the public is rarely, if ever, disciplined against the officers who commit these offenses. They're protected by the police department or by the unions. Rarely does anything ever happen to them, so they get this message loud and clear. This is the rest of his flyer. Those in the law enforcement profession have complete power over you, your life, your family, your loved ones, your rights, your freedom, your future, everything precious to life. From the very word of a law enforcement officer, all those precious things of life hang. We've seen over and over again that attitude, not only from law enforcement, but from every government agency, that they have complete power over you, your life, your family, everything hangs by a thread, hangs by their discretion, that they're not accountable to anyone. Were those remarks out of context? Were they misconstrued? Actually, Sheriff Brown's supporters have essentially doubled down on his remarks. Here's what one person wrote to a newspaper. Officers can ask you to get out of their car. They can handcuff you to protect themselves. They have a lot of power over your life. If you're in a dangerous situation, your life is in their hands. No, actually, he got that wrong. If your life is in their hands, you're in a dangerous situation. This sheriff is up for re-election this Tuesday. And look at what he did at a forum where he's debating his opponent. He actually accused his political opponent of being involved in bombing threats that were carried out by an 18-year-old. The way that he made these threats was with a threatening phone call, which was recorded.
This young man has told me you're the reason for his bomb threats. And the general public is going to believe that.
You hear Brown on the phone with his longtime friend and challenger, Hans Miller.
When somebody makes false allegations without corroboration, that, to me, is a loss of integrity, and integrity, once lost, can never be gained back.
That's right, he makes these vague threats, and he says, well, I don't know what to make of this. I'm just going to have to call in the media and let them decide whether this is true or not. A threat, trying to get the guy to back off.
I find there is absolutely no credible evidence to support such an allegation against Hans Miller or his campaign.
But of course, the district attorney says it is totally unprofessional, and it's not the first unprofessional thing this guy has done. This now borders on the ridiculous. This same North Carolina sheriff, Sheriff Brown of Onslow County, used a wire hanger as a divining rod to search for a buried body. Now, this is being reported by the SBI, the State Bureau of Investigation, North Carolina. And what he did was he took this divining rod and he walked back and forth over the area so much that he erased any footprints, hampering the investigation. So the question is, though, who is dumber, this sheriff or the people who will vote for him?